Okay, this next section is basically what measures will I use to get my data. So we'll start with categorical versus numerical. So sometimes I'll have variables that are in categories, things like year in school, eye color, gender. Numerical is often, see that a lot in business where it assigns numbers. So things like price, sales, revenue, GPA, the population, or maybe number of defects, number of defective parts that come off of a machine. So that's the first question to ask with your variables, is whether it's a category or a number. You're going to be able to do a lot more analysis with numbers. So whenever you possibly can, I would try to get numerical variables. Okay, so once you know categorical versus numerical, which is sometimes called qualitative versus quantitative, you can break it down even further. Categorical data will be coded. So for example, if I'm asking about favorite movie genre, like action, comedy, romantic comedy, horror, basically I can just use a number for each category. So one for action, two for comedy. If it's a binary variable, so there's just two, male, female, that's just called binary coding. And you typically give a 0 for one category and a 1 for the other category. If you have quantitative or numerical data, it can be broken down to either a discrete number or a continuous number. And the only difference there is just integer or not. So basically, number of students, number of Twitter followers, number of Snapchat friends, number of arrests per day is going to be discrete because you don't have half of an arrest or half of a student or half of a Facebook friend. So anything that's basically an integer. So number of siblings, number of kids. So continuous is anything that has a fraction, anything that's not an integer. Things like sales, revenue, profit, market share are all going to be continuous. And we can do a lot with continuous numerical data. One thing to note though about discrete versus continuous, a discrete variable can have a continuous mean. So when you calculate the average number of credit cards per consumer or average number of kids per household, average number of siblings, average number of Facebook friends, you will have possibly a fraction, so 3.7 or 2.2. So that's just a note. Even though you see something like 3.7, if it's an average, it still could be a discrete variable. Okay, and levels of measurement, so we can also break this down by categorical versus numerical, or qualitative versus quantitative. That's the first question to ask here. So do I have a category or do I have a number? And then I can eliminate some of these options. If I have a category, then it's either going to have no rank structure at all, so that would be nominal. Things like, who's your cell phone service provider? What's your favorite cereal? Favorite movie genre? They're giving you categories to choose from, and they're not saying one's better than the other, or one's higher than the other, or there's steps to each level. Whereas ordinal, rank does have meaning. So year in school, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, level in the company, low level management, middle level management, top management, or rank structure in the military, lieutenant, captain, general, or colonel, general. So that's a key question too. Ask first whether you have a category or number. If you have a category, just ask, does rank have meaning? And that's one way to decide whether it's nominal or ordinal. If you have a number, you either have interval or ratio. We want ratio because we can do so much more when it comes to statistical analysis, data analysis, and that has a meaningful 0. So that's what differentiates interval from ratio, is having that meaningful 0. And what I mean by that is basically, sales, if I have 0 sales, that means something. Whereas if I have 0 temperature, it doesn't mean there's no existing, no temperature exists. So temperature would actually be an interval variable. There's no meaningful 0. Another example is, I put FCQs there, that's for faculty course questionnaires. A lot of surveys are going to be interval when you see like 1 for strongly disagree, 2 disagree, 3 neutral, 4 agree, 5 strongly agree, something like that is going to be interval data. You don't have a meaningful 0. But most business numbers like, sales, revenue, profit are going to be ratio, which is good because you can do the most analysis with that. You can do mean, average, standard deviation, variance, things like that. Okay. And so if I were to ask which cell phone provider do you have, I just saw an infographic saying that T-Mobile is actually faster than Verizon now. Verizon is second. So I would ask that question. Notice that it's categories. So what kind of measurement was used for that? It was categories, so I'm going to take out interval and ratio. Nominal and ordinal, the question to ask is there any kind of rank? No, I'm simply asking the question what service provider you have. I'm not saying that there's a rank structure, that one's better than the other or anything like that. And there's also a special case of interval data, which is called the Likert scale. And I'm going to give a demonstration using Qualtrics.